If space is an issue in your home, balcony or veranda and you still want to let those green fingers run wild, then this DIY is for you. It's a simple vertical wall planter. So easy to do, and it looks cool and funky too. So here are the materials that I use for this DIY. I've got some 12 centimeter pots with some succulents inside. Really cool, funky plants, strong, hardy. Even I can't kill these, so that's really cool. You'll see they do come in some of these funky colors on their pots. What I did, I actually wanted to go for normal brown, so I decided to use some Rust-Oleum spray paint, and I converted my pots to a more natural look, being brown. Remember, these are 12.5 centimeter pots, which is going to match up with the dimensions of this planter that we're building for this DIY. They're all available at builders. You can get them from your local builder's outlet. As for wood stain, I've used the Kona Rust-Oleum. I'm using some wood glue, some 35mm screws, and some planed or round timber. Now I'm using 3 lengths of 1.8 meter long, 144 by 22mm thick. As for the tools that I'm going to use, I'm making use of a pencil and tape measure, a set square, a clamp, a hole saw, a strong cordless drill, a sander, and I will also make use of my miter saw, or you can use a rotary saw. Right, let's clear the table and let's get started with this DIY. Right, the first thing we need to do is start cutting our timber, and as you can see on this one I have at the back here, the back piece is 1.4 meters long. We're going to mark that out and then get a straight line using our set square. You'll see I've also got 4 horizontal pieces. They are 185mm long, and then there's 4 diagonal pieces which are 260mm long. And you'll see that we've cut off those edges at 45 degrees. I'm going to be using my miter saw to do this. You can use a rotary saw tilted off at 45 degrees if you want to, or even a jigsaw. Okay, so there's my backboard, clean and flat, and I've got my horizontal pieces. We're going to space those out. My diagonal pieces are going to pop in there like so, and then we'll screw them into position. But before we do that, we need to cut the holes in the center. Now, easiest way to find the center, yes, you can measure it out, or just pull out your ruler and run a line from corner to corner, and where that intersects should hopefully be the center. There we go. X marks the spot. That's where I'm going to cut out my hole. Make sure your drill is square. Step back, have a little look both sides. I'm quite happy with that. That's the first piece complete. Undo the clamp, and then we're going to carry on with the other 3 pieces. That's my 4th one complete, and before I start assembling, it's easier now to actually sand everything down while it's loose. Otherwise, trying to sand into these little nooks and crannies is quite difficult, and you want to sand as much as you can just to actually remove that resin buildup on the timber. That prevents the stain from absorbing into the timber. All those pieces are sanded smooth. I now need to mark the positions for the horizontal pieces. Now, starting at the end, they're going to be evenly spaced. Now, the spacing is going to be 400 from the bottom side. So take a tape measure and mark out 400, 800, and 1.2 meters. Okay, take a set square, line it up, and that's going to be your sight line for the back edge of the horizontal board. At the same time, you're going to have a similar understanding on the underside. Remember, we're going to be screwing this in from the back. So if I turn this one round, we're going to be screwing in from the back into the horizontal board. Now, we want to be drilling all the way through into the center of this board. So you could have just measured additional thickness, or you can actually just line your board up onto that back edge and then strike across, mark, X marks the spot. You know exactly where to drill through. Okay, now remember that's for our horizontal backboards. I'm also going to mark the positions for the screw holes for the top of the horizontal. Now I've worked all of these out beforehand, and the first measurement works out to be 175. So mark 175. The next measurement on the same measure works out to be 575. So we'll just mark that one there. The next one is 975. and the next one is 1375. So take that all the way up to the edge. Okay, so those are the 4 positions for each diagonal where you're going to screw all the way through. Remember to avoid that blowout on the bottom side of the timber. Just drill into a scrap piece of board. Okay, before I start assembling the first framework, and with my diagonal sitting like so, we've got all the screws for the back section. We now need to just drill the holes on the underside of the horizontal pieces. Now the position to go for is equivalent to 1 thickness. That is my marking line. Line it up with my pencil, and X marks the spot. I'm going to drill through again with my speed pilot. Put my scrap board on the underside. That's all the drilling finished. Time to get rid of the scrap board, and then we can start the final assembly of the framework. And make sure you get the position of these screws at the right end. They're going to be on the outer edge, and then wood glue between the mating surfaces. I'm going to line that up into position. Now I'm going to be using the screws. That'll drive all the way through and secure those 2 pieces together. You don't have to wait for that glue to dry before you remove the clamp. The screws are basically going to be taking care of that action. My first piece is in, it's secure and tight. I now need to put the diagonal. Now this is the tricky one, because whenever you're clamping these guys, they always tend to move. So you can try and clamp it on the side there. It wants to slide out, especially once you put wood glue on there. So the easiest way to do it is just to flip it over and rather clamp on the side there. That way you're clamping directly down all the way through onto the table, and you're not clamping against a diagonal surface. Wood glue between the mating surfaces, don't forget that. There you go, the first piece is done. I'm going to do the exact same steps for the other 3. Okay, there you have it. There is our structure complete. Simple, quick and easy. What I am going to do now is just run the sander around the edges just to clean up any misalignment that I've had. You can even put any wood filler if you want to. It can be quite difficult, especially when you're working with angled cuts. And then we're going to get stuck into staining. Now, this stuff goes everywhere. So please make sure you wear these gloves. They really do help protect. Otherwise, if you don't use gloves, your fingers are going to change color, and it's going to be quite some time before you get them back to normal again. Rather put a little amount and then just work it into the timber. Always apply the stain or finish your wipe with the direction of the grain. Guys, I'm not going to bore you with me staining this whole piece. I have cheated already, and I've got one which I've done earlier, so let's move that out the way. So here comes the fun part, and this is where you get to destroy your workpiece. Now you can keep it like that if you want to, but I want to go with this aged look. Easiest way to do this is with a sander. Here's one here. I'm using a 60 grit. You can do it by hand. I've done it many times like that, but it's quite exhausting, so I've now upgraded to an electric sander. So you're just going to pick random spots and then just wear down the edges, the sides, the corners, wherever you feel like. There you have it, the DIY is complete. I now need to go and mount this up on the wall and hopefully enjoy my green fingers and DIY handiwork. I've got the planter in place, and what a cool funky feature it has added to my veranda courtyard area. If you enjoyed this DIY, like it, share it. You can also subscribe to the Builders Fan YouTube channel, where there's a range of DIYs just like this, as well as product reviews for you to check out.